All right, you might think you know about the woman who sued McDonald's for their coffee being too hot, but what you may not know is that it was far from being a frivolous lawsuit. The internet says it's true. Welcome to The Internet Says It's True, where every week we learn something that sounds made up but is really true. Part of the WCBE podcast experience, available on all podcast platforms, also on the NPR app and website. My name is Michael Kent. This is episode 207. Thank you for returning to the show again this week. I have come down with a nasty cold. You might hear it in my voice. So I didn't get a chance to get a new episode out. It is a busy week for me, or at least it was last week. I did shows in New York and Indiana. This week I head to Philly and Springfield, Ohio. I wanted to mention that if you ever want to see my shows, you can do that on Patreon. I upload unedited video of all my performances on Patreon for gold members, but even if you join at bronze or silver, my Tizziters get tons of bonuses like early episodes and ad-free episodes and the video interviews with guests, not to mention stickers and whatnot. So don't forget to join up there. That's patreon.com/Michael Kent.
I am once again asking for your financial support.
Also, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast on the Apple Podcasts app. When you do that, it helps people find me. In addition to a 5-star review, leave a few words about what you like about the show, and I'll greatly appreciate that.
I was thinking of giving this place 5 stars.
Finally, don't forget we have t-shirts and mugs for sale on the website. As a Tizzitor, you get a discount. You can pick those up at theinternetsaysitstrue.com and click merch. You'll find those.
Merchandising!
Today's episode was originally released in August of 2022, and it's all about some hot coffee. When I say the phrase frivolous lawsuits, you probably think of one case in particular. The woman who sued McDonald's because her coffee was too hot. It happened in 1992, and it's a real thing that we'll talk about in just a little bit. But that case changed everything in the way that the American public sees lawsuits. It had a multifaceted effect. Once the public saw this lawsuit and judged it as frivolous, they expressed outrage and backlash at the legal system in general, started blaming everything on a bogged-down legal system, and even engaged in actual frivolous lawsuits because once they saw it working once, they thought, why can't this work for me? So we saw some crazy lawsuits result, like there was an inmate who tried to sue himself for violating his civil rights. Or the guy who just happened to look like Michael Jordan, who sued the real Michael Jordan because people kept mistaking him for the famous basketball player, and he found that inconvenient. Or how about this one? A woman sued 2 little girls in Colorado because they delivered cookies to her home and it caused her a stress-induced panic attack. All of these are examples of actual frivolous lawsuits. But the hot coffee at McDonald's lady? When you really look into it, it's not all that frivolous. Here's the story that you may have heard. An old woman was driving her car through the McDonald's drive-thru, got her coffee, put it between her legs, and it spilled on her, so she sued McDonald's because the hot coffee burned her a little. I mean, after all, we know that the court awarded this woman almost $3 million, and that makes an incredible headline. The public reaction was, you mean we've come to a place in society where you're not responsible if you spill a hot drink on yourself? Well, the real story is quite different than the legend that most people think they know. On February 27, 1992, Stella Liebeck was the passenger in a car being driven through a drive-thru at McDonald's in Albuquerque. Her grandson's Ford Probe didn't have cup holders, so she held her 49-cent cup of coffee in her hands until her grandson could pull over into a parking spot. Once the car was stopped, she wanted to add cream and sugar to the coffee. Needing both hands, she put the cup of coffee between her legs and pulled the far side of the lid up. When she did this, the whole cup tipped over into her legs and seat, pouring the entire cup of coffee. The result were burns over 16% of Liebeck's body, including third-degree burns on 6% of her body. She was in the hospital for 8 days undergoing skin grafts on her inner thighs and parts of her groin. She lost 20 pounds and was partially disabled for 2 years, needing constant care from her daughter. Now, if you're super brave and you're not squeamish, there are actual photos of Liebeck's burns on the internet. I remember when a teacher in college showed these as part of a class, and I have no idea what the class was or how these were pertinent, but I do remember the first time I saw them, and it completely changed my mind about this case. I had always thought of the case as one of these frivolous lawsuits, until I saw how bad the burns actually were. They are awful. The truth is, Liebeck was wearing cotton sweatpants which absorbed and held the liquid next to her skin. The coffee had been served at between 180 and 190 degrees Fahrenheit. Liebeck sued McDonald's and sought to settle for $20,000 just to cover her medical bills. We now know the court case became legendary, and we'll talk about why after a quick break. The world of medication-based weight loss is taking off and can be really scary if you don't know where to turn to for the right information. We've got a great solution for you as a new supporter of the show. Mochi Health is an incredible holistic telehealth platform. It basically connects you with board-certified doctors and dietitians, and they'll help you determine the best course of treatment to reach your health goals with medication delivered to your door. And we're talking about science-backed medications like Ozempic that you've heard of. They make it affordable, personalized, and it doesn't matter what insurance coverage you have, they'll help you find a solution that fits your lifestyle and your weight loss goals. Again, these are FDA-approved GLP-1 medications, and it just couldn't be easier. I want you to go check out joinmochi.com. That's JOINMOCHI.com. And because you listen to this podcast, you get $40 off. Just use promo code INTERNET. Again, that's joinmochi.com, promo code INTERNET, or use the deals link in the show notes. If you love listening to this podcast every week and you want to show your support, that would mean a great deal to me. You can do that by becoming a Patreon member. We've got members at all levels, whether you want to pledge $1 a month or $10 a month. Just think about the value that you receive from this show. And if you like the histories and the stories that you learn about or the jokes that you hear, and if you think that they're worth it, consider signing up. For that, you get every episode ad-free and a week early, access to bonuses like the unedited videos of the guest appearances, and 20% off all merchandise. You can sign up today at patreon.com/Michael Kent. That's patreon.com/Michael Kent. When Stella Liebeck was burned by her cup of coffee at McDonald's, it put her in the hospital for over a week.
All I remember is trying to get out of the car. I screamed, not realizing I was burned that bad. I knew I was in terrible pain.
She and her daughter didn't set out to sue McDonald's for millions. Their response was actually pretty conservative. Liebeck and her daughter wrote a letter to the McDonald's Corporation asking for three things. 1, for the coffee machines to be checked in every store to make sure they are in proper working order and not overheating the coffee. 2, if the coffee machines are working properly, for McDonald's to evaluate the procedure and temperature to which the coffee should be heated. And 3, they asked for $20,000 to cover actual and anticipated expenses. Stella's hospital bills were already more than $10,000, with more expected, and the daughter had lost income from needing to take off work to provide home care for Stella. McDonald's offered $800. This, of course, escalated things, so Liebeck got an attorney and filed suit with U.S. District Court of New Mexico. They cited gross negligence, saying that McDonald's was selling a product that was unreasonably dangerous and defectively manufactured. They first asked to settle for $90,000. McDonald's refused, and Liebeck's lawyer raised it to $300,000. A mediator stepped in and suggested that $225,000 was an appropriate settlement amount. McDonald's refused again, so the case went to trial. It was during this time that several things came to light. McDonald's was serving their coffee at a temperature of between 180 and 190 degrees, and their reason for serving it so hot was that their customers were commuting and they wanted the coffee to remain hot during their drive to work in the morning. Experts testified that 190-degree coffee would produce third-degree burns in just a matter of a few seconds. When you make a coffee at home, it's usually somewhere between 140 and 150 degrees, and if you put it into a ceramic mug, it cools it down even more than that. The trial also produced evidence that McDonald's had previously settled claims of people being burned by coffee that was too hot for as much as $500,000, and had been receiving reports about the coffee problem for the last 10 years, 700 of them. The jury ended up deciding that while 20% of the blame was on Stella Liebeck, 80% of the blame was on McDonald's. The coffee cup had a warning, but the jury decided it wasn't big enough. They awarded her $200,000 for compensatory damages and $2.7 million in punitive damages. This number was apparently arrived at because they thought an appropriate punishment for the restaurant would be 2 days of coffee sales worldwide. McDonald's made about $1.35 million a day in coffee sales. Now, that's not what the restaurant ended up paying. The judge reduced the punitive damages to something closer to $480,000, and the two parties ended up settling out of court, so nobody knows what the amount really was. It was a lot more than the $20,000 the Liebeck's originally asked for. The news of the case blew up across the country, and regardless of the facts, the more intriguing headline was that this was a frivolous lawsuit. Those headlines were so effective that people still point to the McDonald's hot coffee case today, 30 years later, as a textbook case in the need to end frivolous lawsuits and to promote tort reform. The tort reform talk ramped up in the early and mid-90s. It was pushed by Republican lawmakers to protect businesses from lawsuits. They were pushing for a $250,000 cap on lawsuits from defective products. It was the result of corporations spending millions lobbying Congress to try to protect them from lawsuits brought by their own consumers. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce even lobbied to unseat judges who were opposed to tort reform that they wanted. President Clinton rejected the idea, and by doing so helped protect families who need to sue based on faulty products and services. Here's an attorney, Adam Malone, at Emory School of Law, speaking on a panel about tort reform and reacting to a 2011 hot coffee documentary.
What this all boils down to me, in my view, is the one thing that separates the United States of America from the rest of the world, and in my view, is that we have the absolute right to self-govern. And the two places that we do that are at the ballot box and in the jury box. And what tort reform is all about is about money, and it's about fear of you and your neighbors sitting in judgment of them. The pro-tort reform people said they don't really care what the facts are. I leaned over to Professor Vandal and said they really don't. That's what caps are all about. Regardless of whether or not you injure Michael Jordan's hand so that he's totally disabled and unable to use it if it were injured during his prime, or you injure my hand. I mean, surely his hand is worth more than mine is if you were to compare it. But who's to say that some politician has the right, after taking campaign contributions from someone, to decide that the value of his hand is worth no more than $350,000? That's just wrong.
So what you thought you knew about the lady who got burned by McDonald's may not necessarily be the truth. Sometimes legends are hard to defeat when they're more interesting than the truth. And in this case, it wasn't a frivolous lawsuit. The coffee was just too damn hot. The internet says it's true. It's time for the part of the podcast where I call a friend, and today we're calling another magician friend of mine, Peter Boie. Peter is a magician who, like myself, performs on college campuses around the country. He's currently on tour with his show that I'm completely jealous of. It's called Summoning Spirits. What's going on, Peter? Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thanks for having me back. It's great to be here with you.
What were you on? Do you remember what we talked about last time you were on the show? It's been a long time.
I don't remember.
It's okay.
I want to say it had something to do with the president, but
it very well could have been. This episode is a weird one. There's no way that anyone would be a sort of. I guess maybe if you were a lawyer, you'd be an expert in this topic, but other than that, you wouldn't know about it. But regardless of all that, you're starting up your fall tour. Now, you have two shows. You have like your comedy magic show, and then you also have the Summoning Spirits show, which is sort of, it's ghost stories with magic, right?
Exactly, yeah. Ghost stories and magic, creepy ghost stories combined with freaky magic that'll make you scream. That's kind of my elevator pitch.
I'm so jealous of it because it's such a built-in market. I mean, everyone wants the spooky show for October, and so it took I think a year and a half or 2 years for you to, from the time you developed that show to when it was just like, oh, Peter's booked every day in October. And February, because now they call it Freaky February, which is ridiculous. That's not a real holiday. That's not a real thing.
I made it up, actually.
It's great. It's fantastic. It's really good, and I love that you're doing it.
I stole it from a student. A student told me about they did Freaky February, and I was like, can I use that? They gave me permission, and so I ran with it.
Have you worked out any other alliterative months that would be Scary September, Doomsday December? Like, really, you could just do this every month. Like, oh, you guys don't do Scary September? Everywhere I go, it has Scary September.
Now I'm trying to come up with more.
Just every month.
Yeah, that'd be great. I would love to do that. If you have any suggestions, please email them to me at info@peterboie.com.
Jolting January. I don't know if that one's as good, but
April.
Oh, that one's not as those don't work.
No, it's weird. I created the show and didn't even realize how much of an audience it would have in October. I'm like, it'll probably get booked in the last week of October, but I didn't realize how popular it became for Halloween shows. So some of it was definitely a surprise to me.
And the ghost stories that you tell, are some of them real stories, or they're based on real stories?
They're all air quotes real stories.
Okay.
So they're stories that have been written down, that I read about in books about certain places, and I kind of keep it, or I do just keep it to Maine and New England. I live in Maine, because I like the idea of having it kind of like a regional feel. Because if I do shows in New England, these students or whoever watches the show could actually go to these places.
Sure.
Either after the show, if I'm close to them, or sometime in the future. And then if I'm out of New England, people are like, oh, New England is so scary. All these ghost stories. So it kind of, either way, kind of.
I mean, it's old, right? So like, when New England is older than the rest of the country, it's going to have built-in stories. So
yeah.
Well, I brought you on to tell you about a story, but before we get into talking about it, I'm going to ask you the first question, which is the topic. For this first question, we're going to play for a joke. So if you get it wrong, you have to tell me a joke, and if you get it right, I will tell you one. And the way that I've been doing it lately is just pulling one out of a book. So here is your question. In 1992, 79-year-old Stella Liebeck was awarded almost $3 million in what lawsuit? Was it A, she sued McDonald's because the coffee was too hot? B, she parachuted out of a plane and landed in a pigsty? Or C, she was never credited with the writing of House of Pain's Jump Around?
So I can just see the credit on the Apple Music as it comes up. Stella Jump Around.
Liebeck.
You know what? I think you might be trying to get me to go for McDonald's, but I can't remember the woman who won that lawsuit. But maybe you're not trying to fool me, or maybe it's obvious. Are you playing magician
This is a simple
mind tricks
show,
on me?
Peter.
I'm gonna go with A, McDonald's.
You are correct. It's McDonald's. I wasn't trying to. I thought that one was. I just really wanted to talk about an old lady writing House of Pain's Jump Around. I thought it would be hilarious if that was true.
I found it hilarious.
Okay, I owe you a joke. Let's see here. Find one. A man comes home to find a notorious Czechoslovakian philanderer coming out of his wife's bedroom. He chases him down the hall, out the window, and down the fire escape. On his way down, the philanderer jumps into another apartment and says to the surprised tenant, "Can you cash a small check?" Cash, C-A-C-H-E. Can you hide a small check with a Z? That's from Dixon's Joke Treasury, available on Amazon.
You know what I did years ago? I bought this joke book from like the 1920s and was reading some of the jokes, and it's pretty terrible.
Oh, I tried to. So we have a family friend. They have their little daughter. She was like 9. Last summer, I gave her a joke book that I had sitting around. I was like, "Here's a joke book," and she was like, "I don't understand any of these jokes." And I'm like, "Well, maybe you're not like reading correctly or reading them right or whatever." She can read fine. The jokes were just, they didn't make sense to adults because all of the references were dated. I have it here. It's called The Best of The Good Clean Jokes by Bob Phillips. And to give you an example, an honorary degree is like the curl in the tail of a pig. It follows the main part of the animal. It is highly ornamental. In no way does it improve the quality of the ham. Like that. Imagine a 9-year-old reading that. As we were talking just now, and I read a joke, your light went out. What are the chances of that being a New England ghost from your show?
Probably like 100%.
100%. Even
I mean, if I had to estimate,
100% of them are fake.
Yeah.
But you're still going to go with that. Now, do you tell the audience in the show that that there's no real ghosts?
I don't believe in disclaimers because people are going to believe what they believe no matter what. Because if I say this whole show is fake, they're going to, at the end of it, if they want to believe there are ghosts, they're just going to be like, oh, he had to say that, or he's just trying to get us not to throw us off the scent or something. And then if I say these are super real ghosts, then all the skeptics will say he's full of it and all the believers will believe. So it really doesn't matter what I say. But at the beginning, I do state there's an opening monologue, and kind of the line is, I'm a hardcore skeptic. Even I have a hard time not believing these. So, and that's pretty much it. But it doesn't matter. Really,
yeah, no,
because people believe what they want.
You're probably right. And even if they don't believe, it's still easy to suspend your disbelief with stuff like ghosts. Yeah. I don't believe, and I go to ghost tours in every old city that I visit.
It's fascinating.
I've been to ghost tours all over the country.
Yeah, I mean, they're fascinating because you learn the stories of the people, and then the drama as to why there's some sort of hook or drama that makes them want to haunt someplace or people.
Absolutely. And like, for example, I did one of the ghost tours in Savannah. And when you learn about the ghosts of Savannah, you're learning about the history of this city that has seen so many different battles and so many different times when large parts of the population died. So you're learning the history. You're learning about the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, the yellow fever, plagues, all these things that just killed large swaths of their population, because all of these stories are rooted in that stuff. So yeah, some neat stuff. There was one story in Savannah where they dug up the basement of a house to put in like a wine cellar, and they found a whole bunch of British soldiers buried in the basement.
That's creepy.
Yeah, so there are a lot of stories about that one. Yeah, so much cool stuff in Savannah. But like New England, it's old, so that's why. Let's move on. For question 2, for this question, we're going to play for doing the dishes. So if you get it wrong, you have to immediately do the dishes when we're done here. If you get it right, I have to do my dishes.
Oh, I thought I had to go to your house and
you
do
can.
Dishes.
You're welcome to, but my dishes might be done by the time you get here. I know you're a vegan, so you probably don't like your dishes don't get as dirty as mine, I feel. I feel like
really?
Yeah, I feel like when you have like meat and fats, it's like dirtier. Whereas although when I picture a vegan, I'm just picturing like, fruits and vegetables. I don't think of all the sauces.
Yeah. Well, we have fats in the form of like olive oils.
Okay.
Seed oils, olive
That's
oil,
true.
avocado oil, canola oil.
Oh my gosh.
Avocados.
I have learned that I like avocados, so I'm ready to be a vegan.
Yeah, go for it.
It's such a big switch. How long did it take you to convert?
I didn't even start doing it with the intent to become vegan. I was just thinking I need to eat more vegetables, and then I stopped eating red meat. I would have a burger occasionally, and then I just started eating more vegetables, and then I'm like, oh, I can eat vegetables as, I realized I wasn't so reliant on meat anymore because I grew up meat and potatoes type of family.
Yeah, me too.
And then I'm like, oh, I could probably try it. And then I tried it and I was like, oh, it's not too hard. And it was actually kind of fun to find new recipes and cook differently and cook new things and new tastes, new spices that I've never tried before. And I don't know. The transition was probably over like 6 months or so.
Yeah. And you go on the road and you just have to eat more like Indian food, Mexican food when you're on the road.
Yeah. Indian food, Mexican food, Mediterranean, or a lot of veggie burgers. It is really tough on the road because sometimes I go to a gas station and I just get a bag of popcorn and a couple things of peanuts and that's my dinner.
Yeah.
It's not great, but I like to say I'm predominantly plant-based because occasionally. I'll have fish a handful of times a year, something like that.
So to bring this back to the topic at hand, when was the last time you ate at a McDonald's?
I eat at McDonald's all the time.
What do you get at McDonald's that's vegan friendly?
I eat breakfast there. So oatmeal
Okay.
without the cream and a hash brown
And a hash
and a
brown.
coffee.
Yes.
So
okay, well,
it's an easy breakfast.
Your question is this. In the United Kingdom, a McDonald's franchise was purchased by what famous person in 2008? Was it A, Gordon Ramsay, B, Emma Watson, or C, Queen Elizabeth II?
I don't see Gordon Ramsay because he couldn't turn it into anything. That does not make sense to me. Emma Watson makes a lot of sense, right? She's a young person, flush with money, and she probably like loves McDonald's or wanted a McDonald's and there wasn't one around. And I'm going B, Emma Watson.
The answer is C, Queen Elizabeth II. Yes, Emma Watson, born in 1990, would be very young to own a restaurant, although she did get very rich at a very young age.
Yeah. What year was that? Did you say again?
2008.
2008. Yeah. So that'd be 18.
But I guess she was very famous by the time she was that was very rich by the time she was 18. So she very well could have. But the answer is that Her Majesty purchased a retail park near Windsor Castle, where the branch of the fast food chain is located. The Bath Road Retail Park in, I don't know how to say this, Slough, Slough. My United Kingdom listeners will tell me how to say that. Slough. It's visible from the Queen's Quarters in Windsor Castle. It was bought by the Crown Estate for £92 million. So she owns. Wow. I don't know if she still owns this, but that was the story in 2008.
That's pretty incredible.
It is.
I would have guessed Gordon Ramsay before the Queen.
Yeah, right.
Because that would have been like maybe an ironic purchase by by Gordon.
I think if you're Gordon Ramsay, it would be fun to tell your friends, come eat at my restaurant, and then you just take them to McDonald's. And you're like, what? I own it. Or you take them to McDonald's and they have like the most luxurious Big Mac they've ever had in their life that you've, put Gordon Ramsay stamp on.
It looks like a McDonald's, but you go in and it's all the same stuff, but it's like just gourmet.
This is actually a really great idea for McDonald's to do.
It's made from like real ingredients and stuff.
Can you imagine if there was a McDonald's like that in, say, like New York City? It was, and they called it like luxury McDonald's, or they just called it McDonald's, and it was kind of like a secret that if you go to this one, it's all like homemade food, like food made from scratch instead of the rest of. Oh my God, that would be amazing. Everyone would try to go to that. So you have to do the dishes. I'm sorry to tell you. That's
so it's going to be very difficult after this. I'm just going to go upstairs and press a button. It's going to be.
You don't have hand wash dishes?
Hell no.
Are you one of those families that you don't buy a mug that isn't dishwasher safe?
Good question. I don't really buy mugs.
Not a mug buyer.
No.
I feel like we have a lot of mugs in this house. So
yeah, I do. I hand wash knives after I'm done with them because I hate putting cooking utensils in there because
you need
you need them throughout the day. They're never. You always have to wash them twice.
100%.
Take them out, wash it, use it, and then wash it again. And
our knives, our fancy knives, I do not like to put our knives in the dishwasher because I feel like it's going to ruin them somehow over time or something. So
yeah,
my nice, I don't know what you call them. They're the fancy kind.
I went for the Cutco.
Yes, those are supposed to be nice. Mine are the Wusthof. I think they're Wusthof, and I only use the chef's knife. It's like I just use one knife. I don't use any of it. It's like a set of 8 knives. I use one.
It's the most useful knife. You can do anything with that knife.
It's all you need. The only thing it's not great for is cutting open a turkey, like through the skin and the meat. I like to use a bread knife for that. It's serrated, but you don't have to worry about that because tofurkey can be cut with a butter knife. So I don't know if that's true.
I make this incredible loaf. It's for Thanksgiving. It is a mushroom and lentil stew with a apple cranberry sauce layered in there with incredible mashed sweet potatoes on top, all wrapped up in a puff pastry. It's
Wow.
amazing.
That sounds amazing. I might like that better. I'm not a big turkey fan, so I might like that actually better than the traditional Thanksgiving. Let's keep moving. For this question, we're playing for a Tell Me What to Google sticker. This is probably the name of the podcast last time you were on it. I don't know if you were on after we rebranded or not, but they're all I have right now. I don't have the real stickers, so I only have my old stickers.
So are you just trying to get rid of those now? Is that why?
Yeah, I looked around my table a long time ago and I said, what do I have to give away? And I had those stickers at the time, and that's just always remained the stakes for question 3. And for every guest, it's always a sticker. So for here's your question. Which one of these was a real lawsuit that McDonald's won? These are all lawsuits. One of them is real. The other 2 are made up.
You know what I just realized?
What's that?
All the questions revolve around McDonald's.
Yes, the story is about the hot coffee at McDonald's and the woman. And I really should also say the reason that I thought this story was interesting about the woman who, the frivolous lawsuit that's pointed to as like the first frivolous lawsuit in the modern era is because it wasn't a frivolous lawsuit. The lore of the story outran the truth of the story. Which is that the woman was very badly burned and the coffee was served way hotter than it ever should have been. And McDonald's knew about it and for a long time and was warned and did nothing. And so they absolutely deserved to lose that lawsuit and to pay out. So, but the more interesting story is that, in the early 90s, someone spilled coffee on themselves and now they're suing the coffee restaurant. That sounds frivolous. It's a better story than what the truth is. So.
Yeah.
Here are your 3 lawsuits. A, Elizabeth McCoffey started a coffee shop called McCoffey's. It was her last name, McCoffey, McCoughthy, but her coffee shop was called McCoffey's, spelled like coffee. McDonald's sued her after 17 years in business. They won in court. They made her change the name. Here's a second one. Dr. Seuss, Theodore Geiss, created a character who stole the Christmas ham from the dinner table and originally called this mischievous character the Hamburglar. Until McDonald's sued him, they won that case. C. John Ramos, or is it John Ramos? Ramos of Madison, Wisconsin, installed a ball pit in his family pizza restaurant and was sued by McDonald's, who claimed that it was a proprietary part of their playland area.
All right. So I'm crossing off C. I don't see that holding up in court at all.
Okay.
Not at all. But Hamburglar, but that doesn't sound like a Dr. Seuss word. Like, yeah, I don't know. I don't think the Hamburglar. I could, but A, if you name something after your name, a product or a store, and it's your name, I don't think you're legally, you can't be forced to change it, I don't think. I'm just going off with my
Go, what's your gut say?
I'm going with my lawyer head here, which is nothing. I know nothing about
one of
law.
these is true.
I'm going with, oh man. But the first one sounds more plausible. I'm going with A.
With A?
Yes.
The answer,
B.
believe it or not, is A. You are correct. Elizabeth McCoffey started a coffee shop called McCoffey's, McCoffee. So she used the word coffee in the name of her restaurant. So she changed the spelling of her name for that, and that is why they sued her.
Oh.
She couldn't call it. Yeah. And now if she would have called it McCoffey spelled GH, she probably would have been able to keep that. But no one would have known it was a coffee restaurant for 17 years. So
That's true.
Yeah. So you win a Tell Me What to Google sticker. I will give it to you when I see you this fall somewhere on the road.
That sounds great.
I'm sure I'll see you somewhere.
I'm coming to Columbus, I think, or Dayton.
Okay. Good deal, man. I'll have to come.
Yeah.
Is it for the Summoning Spirits show, or do you know?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah,
I
it
want
is.
to see it.
Yeah.
I want to see it. Okay, question 4. For this question, we are playing for an admission of our favorite and least favorite plots in magic. If you get it wrong, you'll tell me yours. If you get it right, I'll tell you mine. Now, last week, I asked this question to Eric Tate. These were our stakes. He got the question right. I completely forgot about the stakes. I never said mine. And so whether or not you get it right or not, I'm going to share mine. You can share yours. We'll both share in this one.
Oh, nice. I just watched Eric Tate win third place.
You were
FISM
there
in
yes,
Quebec.
We talked about it last week.
Yeah.
He won third place. Amazing. He's been in all the newspapers here in Columbus. It's been fantastic. And one of the cool things that you may not have known about his performance as you watched it is Eric relied a lot on local artists for that act. So the music was locally sourced. The wardrobe was made by people here in Columbus. His art direction, everything was from people in Central Ohio. And that was sort of,
yeah, I did not know that. And that's actually the first time I got to meet him. I was hanging out with Diddleman a lot, and he introduced me to him. Super nice guy.
Super nice guy. Cool. Yeah, I like Eric. So here's 3 frivolous lawsuits. One of these actually happened. Here you go. Similar to the last question, one of these is an actual Now, this isn't necessarily, that McDonald's won, and these have nothing to do with McDonald's. A man sued Budweiser because their beer failed to help him attract beautiful women like in the ads. That's your first option. B, a woman sued Nike after their shoes didn't make her run fast enough to make the USA Olympics team. Or C, a man sued a funeral home after he claimed their location in a bad part of town resulted in poor attendance at his wife's funeral.
Oh my God. I hope that's not it. That's awful.
They're all awful, but one of them's true.
Oh, that's awful. All right. So we'll go in reverse order here. Funeral home. That's just crazy. I can't even imagine somebody, maybe they're filled with enough grief that they just are trying to win something or take it out on somebody. But then again, he chose the funeral home, and he knew its location beforehand. So, I'm not buying number 3. Number 2, failed to win the get on the Olympic team. I feel like if you're at that level, you have to be smarter. Like if you're if you're on the cusp of making an Olympic team, you have to be smarter than that, I think. And I mean, you've gone through a lot of shoes at that point. There's no way. But I have to go with the guy that thought he could attract lots of females and blame it on beer, because that just sounds right.
It sounds American is what it sounds.
Yeah, it sounds American. It's, if I can't attract women to me, it's not my fault. It's the beer.
Well, Peter, you are correct. Once again, you're doing well. The man sued Budweiser because their beer failed to help him attract beautiful women. You are 3 for 4. Sad, lonely Richard Overton filed a lawsuit against Anheuser-Busch in the early 90s. So despite consuming more and more of their beer in order to lure the attractive women in their ads, the lager failed to make his fantasies of having beautiful women fawn over him a reality. He sued him for $10,000, claiming to have suffered emotional distress, mental injury, and financial loss. He was looking for a sugar mama, I guess, or maybe just having bought all the beer. Needless to say, the case was dismissed from court, never actually made it in.
That's fantastic. I can't believe he said I was looking for a sugar mama, because...
Well, he didn't say that. I'm just saying
he didn't say
the fact that he was looking for financial loss or claiming financial loss. Yeah. Maybe it was just because he bought a whole bunch of beer. I really don't know.
If you're looking for a sugar mama, you should be buying the like the Cristal or the right. Champagne.
Yeah, but it was about the ads. It was all about the ads that Budweiser was showing in the 90s and in the 80s.
Yeah. Was this after the coffee spilling incident?
It was actually the year before.
Oh,
so
interesting.
yeah, and maybe if it happened after the coffee spilling incident, maybe it would have had a chance to make it all the way to court, and maybe it would have been accepted. I don't know. The case was thrown out. So what's your favorite, even though you don't have to tell me, do you have a favorite and a least favorite plot in Magic?
I don't have a least favorite plot, but my least favorite trick.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
The linking rings.
Okay, and is there a reason? I
feel like it's dull. Like after the first time you see them link and unlink, It just gets less impressive.
I agree with you.
The more you go.
Yeah, I agree with you. The ones that the linking ring routines that I like are just two rings that link.
Yeah.
And then unlink.
Yeah,
and
like a Himber, like a...
Well, yeah, but even, there are several routines where there's like look, don't see routines, right? Where you're doing the linking and the unlinking and the other person can't get theirs apart and you're not looking at them and then you look and I think it's maybe a Whit Hayden routine or something. Anyway, I think those are great. And I've seen some really great just 2 ring routines, but I agree. What about
and
favorite?
that's old since I first started Magic.
Okay.
Favorite plot. Maybe I can go favorite plot for this because
sure.
I think my favorite plot is transposition.
Ooh, yeah. 2 things changing places.
Yes, 2 things changing places, and preferably like mixed in an impossible location there. Like
sure.
One of the things is a borrowed object, right? And
yes.
It changes. So it's
I especially like
object.
I especially like a transposition when one item is in full view the whole time. So say like there's a $20 bill and a playing card, and they're going to switch places. So I'm holding the playing card, and then I cover in the bill's on the table, and then I cover up the playing card, and then it's the bill, and then you look down at the table, at the uncovered bill has now become the playing card. I love those types of things, where the second thing, it's just because you know that it changed and you weren't looking at it. But that might be just because I'm a magician and I love being like that badly misdirected.
Mm-hmm.
And what were you gonna say?
I think I like it because it kind of has a built-in plot that's more than one beat,
Sure.
Because you have two things that happen. Something disappears,
yes,
or changes, and then you have to go follow it up with uncovering, finding the thing again in another place.
I agree, and I think what that is for me is that I like when the audience is led to the natural next place. And this happens a lot in improv when the audience catches on to whatever the game is or whatever the joke is. Then the next setup becomes really funny because they know where it's going to lead. And so if something happens, you don't have to tell the audience that the other thing is going to happen. They know that it's going to happen because it has to. That's great. Those are great choices. I think for my least favorite plot, I have a couple, and it's usually mentalism. I'm critical of mentalism, but I've never really seen myself or been a mentalist. The Magic Square plot is a thing where most of my listeners are not magicians, so I'm going to have to explain this a little bit. There's a grid usually like on a marker board, and some numbers are given, and everything seems random. But then when you add a number together this way, it comes to whatever number this person chose. Say you add these and it's 49, and then you add top to bottom and it's 49, and diagonal it's 49, and if you do all the corners it's 49. The reason I don't like it, I've never seen a routine that fixes this issue. The performer can add faster than me. I have math anxiety. I'm not the same thing happens when I try to play blackjack. I don't like that everyone at the table can add the cards faster than I can. I'm just a slow math person or whatever. I'm good at math. I'm just slow. It just takes me longer. And so I feel like after the first time when the performer adds the numbers together, I'm having to take their word for it. They might not add to 49. I don't know.
Well, that's like blackjack too, because I think most of the people at the table are just taking the dealer's word for it.
Oh, well, the dealer doesn't always tell you either. It depends on the dealer and what time of day you're playing. I like the ones where they do tell you. It's more like when I play on my phone.
They should have a little sign on the blackjack table. We count for you.
Table for bad counters. So that's one of my least favorite plots. My other least favorite plot, also mentalism, is called color match. This is where someone is taking random markers out of a thing, and then they write the performer tells them to color this picture, and by the end they've got a prediction of those colors in this picture. And I don't like it for reasons that I really can't get into without explaining how the trick works. But I think that the audience memory is different than what the performer thinks the audience memory is. And then I just don't like it. I feel like it's a lot of process for very little payoff.
I think you have an axe to grind with mentalism.
I might, because a lot of my least favorite stuff is all mentalism. in terms of plots that I love, I was going to say A Simple Vanish, in under impossible conditions. I think of Derek Delgadio's In and of Itself, which you can watch on Hulu, I believe, and where he builds a house of cards around a brick on a table, very slowly and methodically, and then he blows the house of cards over, and the brick is just gone. I love things like that. There was an appearance that Copperfield used to do that was kind of like this. He only did it for like 1 year, in which they were building sort of a shadow box on stage, and it's the opposite. So his was an appearance, I believe. The routine starts with him leaving up the aisle, and you see him go out the back of the theater. Meanwhile, his assistants are building this shadow box on stage that you can see light through, and then he's inside the shadow box. I think things that are really slow and methodical, and completely impossible when presenting something that's very physical, magic, something appearing or disappearing. I really enjoy that type of thing.
My favorite vanish is called Impression Vanish.
I've seen someone do this now, and this is something I think even if you're not a magician, you can look for online. And what it is you used to like do, you've seen people do like grave rubbings, where you take a piece of paper and you rub over it with a pencil or some chalk, and then you can see an impression on the paper. You can do that with like a penny, and at the end, the penny's gone. And you can still see the impression of the penny on the paper. It was definitely there. And for those of you who don't know this, this is Peter's trick. He invented this. He makes the money when you buy it. So look up Impression Vanish at your favorite magic shop.
Yeah, that's shameless plug there.
Yeah.
But that was interesting because when I did make that, you were talking about like, and I agree, Derek Delgadio's Vanish of Brick is amazing and beautiful. Because a lot of times when you vanish something as a magician, you always want to bring it back, or you usually bring it back,
Sure.
Because it feels incomplete to the audience.
Yeah.
But I just love the idea of making something vanish and having it so deceiving that you don't have to bring it back.
Right.
Or you don't do it to leave the audience unsettled. Like, where did it go? It was so impossible. They have no clue where it is or where it went. And you just leave them with that. Well, it's almost like a note of dissonance in ending on a note of dissonance in a song or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, and if it doesn't come back, then it really vanished.
Yeah.
If it comes back, It was somewhere nearby. Now, in the case of Delgadio's show, In and of Itself, the brick does appear somewhere else that he tells them, and an audience member comes up with any intersection in New York City, and that's where the brick reappears. And people can jump in an Uber after the show and drive to that, and the brick will be there. It's a gold brick, you can't miss it, and just incredible. But when David Copperfield makes 13 people from the audience vanish at the end of the show, the first tour that he did that, he did not make them reappear at the end. And I was in it. I disappeared.
You were part of that trick?
I was part of that trick. Yeah, I was backstage and everything. Yeah. So I got to go in the box. David Copperfield made me disappear. And then there was an announcement at the end of the show that said, if your loved one has vanished, they are now on tour with David Copperfield across the country. But he did not bring them back in the show like he did after that. So I think the next tour, he started bringing them back, making them appear on stage again at the end.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So,
hey, so you told me to have a joke ready, but I was so good. I didn't need a joke, but can I show you something? But can I show you something?
Well, you can tell me something. It's a podcast, so showing me something isn't going to do much.
I'll show it to you, and this is. We were talking about my little electronics project here. I made another one.
What is this?
I will just, for those of you who can't see, it's a little box with two flashing buttons,
and it says Finn's Joke Machine. It's a light up. There's an LED display or a grid of lights, and it says jokes. Finn's Joke Machine. There are two arcade buttons that are
there's a red one. Here,
so
I'll show you what happens when the red one plays.
Okay.
What did the limestone say to the geologist? Please don't take me for granite.
Wow.
Yeah, and then here's the blue button.
I was just going to ask if you had an applause button, and that's even better. You have a laugh. Now, is that, I know that that's your voice telling the joke. Is that your voice doing the laugh as well?
No, I found the laughs. They're part of Apple GarageBand.
Oh, really? Yeah, they're like
sound effects.
they're loops.
So
That's amazing.
I figured I'm good with copyright on them if Apple gave them to me. But so yeah,
that
I have
is so great.
I have a bunch of jokes loaded in here. And you want to hear another one? I don't
Yes,
know
I
what's
do.
up. I don't even know what's up next. So
What do you call a duck that gets all A's on his report card? A wise quacker.
Oh my gosh. This is so good. If I booked you at my show, I would just want you to bring these things. Like, magic's cool, but this stuff is awesome. Like, you could just bring these and just play with them. Bring on your little electronic toys. You know what you have become, Peter? You have become the dad in the beginning of the movie Gremlins.
Oh, really? I've
Have you
never
ever
seen that movie, so you're gonna have to explain.
Go back 5 seconds. What? You have never seen the movie Gremlins?
No.
Okay. Well, remember how I said that you have to do the dishes? No longer do you have to do the dishes for the one question you missed so far. You have to watch the movie Gremlins, new stakes after the fact. Much more important than doing the dishes. You need to watch the movie Gremlins. And the people that are listening, whose mouths are dropped open like mine is right now, know what I'm talking about. The beginning of the show is the dad, and he has all these crazy inventions that he makes. So
nice.
He's like an
cool.
electronics
That's
tinkerer type of guy.
They're so silly, but they give me so much joy.
I love it.
They put a smile on my face.
I love it, man. I love it. Well, we've only got one more question right, and we've gone a little bit over time, but I just enjoy talking to you. This one's for all the marbles, Peter. If you get this wrong, I'm banning you from this podcast. You will not be asked a third time. Here is your question. What is your number one travel tip?
My number one travel, I thought about this long and hard, and my number one travel tip is if you get to a hotel too early for check-in, right? They always say 3:00 check-in, and I go up to the counter because a lot of times our flight gets in and you want to take a shower and before you head out to a show, or if you're on vacation, you want to get into your hotel and take a shower so you're ready for the festivities that evening. First of all, I try politeness, and hi, I'm Peter. I have a reservation for tonight. And I know I'm a little early, but didn't know if you could squeeze me in. And I don't have any preference on room. If that doesn't work, we were booked solid last night. We don't have any rooms, or we don't have your room ready, and they're not willing to switch you to another room in the computer, because sometimes you get front desk people like that. If they say that, then this is my tip. There's always a couch in the lobby. You say, okay, that's fine. I'm just going to hang out right over here. You just let me know when it's ready. And you go over and you sit down, and maybe you take out your computer. Then maybe you take off your shoes. Then you put your feet on the coffee table. Maybe you lay down. Maybe you should close your eyes for a little bit of a nap. Maybe you open up your suitcase and a pair of dirty underwear falls out. There's a lot of, you get where I'm going. Maybe you take out your floss and start getting that piece of apple that's been stuck in there for a while. You could do that. Maybe even a little bit of teeth brushing. That could work. So, do what makes you feel comfortable, but do what makes them feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, the premise being this is a business and this is their lobby and this is the face of their business. And it's then in their best interest to not sit there and watch you do that for the sake of themselves and for their future guests. That's great, man. That is all great advice and very a common situation in my travels. I know that because I take the first flight out usually just for forgiveness, so I can, in case there's a travel delay, I can still make it to the city in time. And I get to the airport, or I get to the hotel early so often. And
we're always asking to be let in early, and it can be, usually it goes smoothly and people are nice, and if they have a room available, they'll switch things out for me. Actually, I ran into this over my last show. They just didn't have, he wasn't willing to put me into a different room that was ready because I booked on Priceline, and apparently it's not allowed.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. If you book on those discount sites, they always treat you like crap.
Yeah, because they're not getting
Or-
paid as much. Right.
Yeah. So, but yeah, if you just kind of make your home in the lobby, usually within 30 minutes they found a room for me. So
That is wonderful advice and a right answer, Peter. You went 4 for 5 today, which is fantastic. I am happy to have you back on the show again. You can learn where to see Peter Boie on his website. It is peterboie.com. Now, Boie is spelled B-O-I-E, correct?
that is correct. And if you can't remember that, petermagician.com.
Peter Magician. I really appreciate you coming on, man, and best of luck with your travels this fall. I can't wait to see you on the road sometime somewhere.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me back. It is great to see and talk to you.
Thank you for listening to The Internet Says It's True. To listen to episodes ad-free and a week early, support us on Patreon. You can do that at patreon.com/Michael Kent. If you learned something just now that you didn't already know, go to the Apple Podcast app and leave us a review with 5 stars and a few words. That helps us a ton, because that's how the algorithm works. I don't know what an algorithm is, but just do it. See you next week for a brand new episode of The Internet Says It's True!
The Internet Says It's True would like to thank the Patreon subscribers whose monthly contributions help to make this show possible. Dallas Ray, Sean Brown, Bryce Swanson, Eugene Anderson, Matt McVeigh, Jim Martin, Joanne Martin, and the show's official Emperor Kick Track. The show is written and produced by me, Michael Kent. The theme song is by Finite Music Forge. All audio clips in this episode are used for education and commentary and used under Fair Use Title 17, USC Section 107. You can listen to past episodes by searching for The Internet Says It's True wherever you get your podcasts, and you can see bonus content at patreon.com/Michael Kent.